So today I want to respond to some TikToker called Pushpak Sidhu, probably a Pakistani, who has a lot of short TikToks about food and its origins. So I want us to watch a little video, a little TikTok that he did, then we're going to comment on it. So let's see.
Palestinian shawarma versus Israeli shawarma. Which one is better? Time to find out. We're gonna start with the Palestinian shawarma. That is good. There's so much flavor in here and it's actually spicy. Let me also check. Nope, there's no Hamas in here. I'm gonna give this a solid 9 out of 10. Next up, we got the Israeli shawarma. And it came with the fork for some reason, which is kind of useless, but not as useless as the United Nations. This is delicious. Wait a minute. Bro, this is just another Palestinian shawarma. You can't just take something Palestinian, put a label on it and call it Israeli. This feels like a violation of 4 articles under the 4th Geneva Convention, 28 UN resolutions, and several articles under the Genocide on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, also known as the Genocide Convention. And if these rules weren't violated, maybe Palestinian kids could actually enjoy some Palestinian food instead of starving. Palestinian shawarma wins. This video was sponsored by Joe Biden Get Gone and Justin Trudeau can non-existent today.
Okay, so in this video we've seen that this TikToker called the shawarma Palestinian shawarma, and he really relates to it and describes it as a Palestinian food. And for him, if Israelis eat shawarma, they steal Palestinian food, and then he connects it to the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict, in which the Palestinians are these poor saints and the Israelis are these evil monsters who steal everything and do a genocide. Okay, so aside from the genocide, let's focus on his claiming that shawarma is a Palestinian food. So first thing, we can see here an article by Raviv, someone called Yael Raviv, who published an article in the academic food journal Gastronomica on volume 3, number 3, summer 2003. She did a short article about falafel, and in this article she basically says that most Arabs agree that falafel is an Egyptian food, probably a Coptic food from at least the 12th or 13th century, where Egyptian Coptic Christians couldn't eat meat during Lent, so they prepared falafel probably. And in it she says that in a brief survey of Middle Eastern cookbooks written mainly by Palestinian and Arab authors, I found that falafel is consistently described as popular throughout the Middle East. The fast food of the Middle East, falafel has invaded restaurant menus of all categories in many parts of Europe and America. From one Arab cookbook, one of Egypt's national dishes, falafel is also very popular in Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan, meaning that the Egyptians at least don't care that falafel is being eaten in Lebanon or in Syria or in Jordan. They don't see it as culturally appropriating it, or in North Africa. They don't culturally appropriate our food, even though it is Egyptian. And then she goes on to say that Israel is omitted from this description. So falafel here is something that she basically says that Arabs and Muslims in general have a problem that Jews like falafel. Jews are the only people who treat falafel as a national dish, by the way. She says here that only after Jews started treating falafel as a national dish did other Arab countries and Muslim people decided to treat falafel as their heirloom, and how the Jews really robbed them, disregarding all the Arab Jews, of course, something like 1 million Jews that for them are non-existent. So according to her, only when Jews or Israelis try to look at falafel as a dish that they enjoy because they live in the Middle East and ingredients and cultures all around them, they use it, and they also use it, then it is some form of theft, even though they didn't participate, like sugar, for example, in which colonials really used sugar, the raw ingredients, and something that was forced upon the population. Here, this is not the case. They are only angry that Jews have control over part of the Middle East, and they are foreigners here, and we will never accept them, and we will never let them eat our food. Now, concerning shawarma itself. So we saw falafel, we saw something about falafel and how Arabs around the world, how they treat falafel, the appropriation, let's call it, of falafel by Israeli Jews. And let's see about shawarma. Let's see in the book of the Cambridge History of World Food in 2 volumes. This is from the 2nd volume. So it says here that shawarma was a development of some form of food called doner kebab, a Turkish dish, and it was invented in Bursa, a town that gave birth to the world famous doner kebab, meat roasted on a vertical revolving spit. And the word itself, shawarma, is an Arabic mispronunciation of chivarme, of the word in Turkish, which means turning around. So Arabs appropriated this Turkish dish, which we have here an academic source that really backs it up, that it is a Turkish dish, and they appropriated it. And then this Pakistani TikToker says that the shawarma is a Palestinian food. So we can see here, we can understand here that as long as Muslims, Turkish are Muslims, as long as Muslims or Arabs, no matter where, it could be in Morocco in the far west, and they can be in Iraq or in Syria, no matter where they are, if they are Arabs or Muslims, then it can't be culturally appropriating things, even though this is from very different regions of the world with very different cultures. As long as they're part of the Ummah, the Islamic nation, or as long as they are part of this Arab world, even though Arabs conquered all of these places, North Africa, what it was then called Palestine, Syria, and Egypt, even though Arabs conquered this place, then it is now Arab, and everything taken from there is really stealing from the Arabs, this big different groups of nationalities that this Pakistani sees as part of his Ummah. He is also probably a Muslim or from a Muslim state if he is Pakistani. So we can see here that by calling the shawarma a Palestinian food, it doesn't really mean that shawarma is a Palestinian food, but that it is part of the Arab and Muslim, 2 billion people, by the way, are included in here, the Arab and Muslim world, and as such, Jews and Israelis, even though there are many Jews who came from the Arab world, like Yemen, Syria, Morocco, Algeria. My wife is a Jew from Morocco, for example. All of these people are Jews, so they can be part of the Ummah, they can be part of the Muslim world, and they are not Arabs, even though many of them spoke Arabic. Therefore, shawarma is a Palestinian food, and the Israeli Jews stole it from them, even though historically, as we've seen, this is not true. Now, if we talk about cultural appropriation, I think that treating Israel, the national land of the Jews, and its Torah, its Bible, and the stories in it, and the holy sites the Jews have here, and viewing them and appropriating them as holy to Muslims, I think it's a much worse form of appropriation than eating a Turkish food and saying that it is part of the Middle Eastern diet of Israelis. Need to think about it.